MSW Media.
News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. Today, bomb threats rock New Jersey on Election Day as Trump whines about California mail ballots. FBI Director Kash Patel lashes out at the response to his use of a private jet to visit his girlfriend, and that he has a girlfriend in the first place. The Trump and Republican shutdown has threatened food, healthcare, and now heating. Trump's Justice Department is withholding transcripts of Lindsey Halligan's presentation to the grand jury in the Comey case. Feds say immigration enforcement might have to stop if a judge intervenes at the Broadview facility in Chicago. And local Colorado police are investigating a federal agent for excessive force. I'm your host, Allison Gill. Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday, taint of the week, middle of the week for you. Dana's out today, so I'll be hosting. She's traveling for one of her galas, fundraising for all the wonderful causes. Later in the show, I'll be talking to Kat Abughazaleh as she's running for Congress in Illinois' 9th District. And first of all, thank you so much, patrons, for all of your new video podcast feedback. It's wonderful. It's great. We're making adjustments that you're recommending. Today, since I'm by myself, I'm just going to be doing a dramatic reading of the testimony in the Sandwich Guy case. The trial started today. Jury selection was yesterday. And today, as you're listening to this podcast on Wednesday, the jury is supposed to come back and start deliberating. And if just one decides that they don't want to convict this guy on a misdemeanor charge of simple assault for throwing a sandwich, that means that he goes free he goes free anyway. He's not been in jail, but you know what I mean. He gets acquitted. Also, elections are underway as I record this episode. Polls are still open on Tuesday night. And PBS is reporting that bomb threats to New Jersey polling stations, a voter roll mishap in Pennsylvania, potentially affecting thousands of voters, and warnings by Trump against California's mail balloting system marked the final day of voting in an off-year election with several nationally prominent races. And by the way, it's record turnout, and that usually bodes well for Democrats. Voting otherwise appeared to be going smoothly Tuesday across the United States as voters cast ballots in the first significant election since Trump won the White House for a second time. They were deciding governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, a mayor's race in New York, Supreme Court elections in Pennsylvania, and voting on gun control measures and voting rights measures in Maine. A redistricting initiative in California that was a response to Trump's push to redraw congressional lines in GOP-controlled states ahead of next year's midterm elections has been of particular interest to the Republican president. His Department of Justice sent election monitors to 5 counties in California, a state Trump has lost 3 times, and where he has often criticized its use of mail ballots despite zero evidence of any fraud or other voting-related problems, at least not widespread. And in a post Tuesday on his social media platform, the president called the state's voting process rigged and warned that it was under very serious legal and criminal review. Stay tuned. So this reminds me of back in the 2020 election when he tried to get Jeffrey Clark to write a letter to Georgia saying your stuff's under investigation for, potential voting fraud and all that other stuff before he called down and threatened him with criminal charges if he didn't find him 11,780 votes. But back then, those Republicans down in Georgia were pushing back. And so were people within his Department of Justice. Remember, if you make Jeff Clark Attorney General, you're going to be an Attorney General over a graveyard. That's what Hirschman said he said to Donald Trump when he was threatening in an Oval Office meeting to install Jeffrey Clark as the Attorney General. We don't have that anymore. We don't have any Hirschmans or Cipollones or Philbins to stop Donald Trump from doing these kinds of, election rigging investigations. So we're about to find out what it's going to look like when there's no adults in the room. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And I'm sure Mark Elias will too. We probably won't have any election results by the time this show airs. But if we do, we'll see if we can break in now. Hey, everybody, it's Allison Gill. Oh my God. It's still early in the night, but Abigail Spanberger has won governor of Virginia, 56-43. Ghazala Hashmi has won lieutenant governor, 54-46. Jay Jones, Virginia attorney general, the Democrat, has won 52-48. So trifecta there in Virginia. Mikey Sherrill has won governor of New Jersey, 60-40. Again, these are early results, but they have projected her the winner. Democrats just flipped both statewide public service commissioner seats in Georgia, and those are in at 60-40 for both of them. Democrat Afab Puraval won the Cincinnati mayoral election. Democrat Corey O'Connor is elected Pittsburgh mayor. Democrat Andre Dickens has won re-election for Atlanta's mayoral race. NBC is reporting all 3 Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices have retained their seats. Donahue, Doherty, and Wecht. That's who we wanted. That's what we wanted. And it's just now being reported and called by Decision Desk. Zoran Mamdani has won the mayoral race in New York City, 50-40. He has 50, Cuomo has 40, Sliwa has 8.5%. This is an incredible night for Democrats. And I hope that everyone can take this hope forward with them as we keep continuing to report on the current administration. But what an amazing night for Democrats across the country. At the time I'm recording this, California polls have not closed yet. They don't close for another hour and a half, but we'll see how Prop 50 does. Thanks. Also, everyone, please subscribe to the Martin Sheen podcast. His latest episode includes an interview with his son, Ramon. And as he told me earlier this week on the Daily Beans, he plans on interviewing Emilio and Renee, his daughter, and eventually Charlie Sheen. So you definitely want to subscribe to that podcast. I love listening to it. I pop it in. I go for walks. I love it so much. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm super proud to be a part of that project. Also, in some other news, court news, there's new filings in the case where journalists and priests are suing the Department of Homeland Security in Chicago. The case is called Chicago Headline Club v. Nome. And as you know, Judge Ellis issued a temporary restraining order barring ICE from using those tactics and to wear body-worn cameras and also to not dispense tear gas without multiple verbal warnings and giving enough people enough time to respond to those warnings. And the hearing, that's a temporary restraining order. The hearing for a more permanent block called a preliminary injunction is today, November 5th, as you're listening to this. This is the one where she brought in Gregory Bavino to testify because he actually threw a canister of tear gas as well. A new filing in this case hit the docket on Tuesday, and this is the Chicago Headline Club. They accidentally entered it on the public docket without redactions this morning. And in that, under the redaction bars, we learned that ICE officers, ICE agents were caught on tape mocking protesters, laughing at tear-gassed protesters, and saying they should throw some more tear gas on them for fun. We also learned the Department of Justice is refusing to hand over drone footage of these incidents, and that also learned that the judge believes the plaintiffs will prevail on the merits. So I imagine sometime today you'll hear Judge Ellis issue a preliminary injunction, which is a more permanent version of her temporary restraining order. Plus, over in Oregon, Trump-appointed Judge Immergut has, turned her temporary restraining order, blocking the deployment of National Guard in Portland. She's already turned that into a preliminary injunction, and she's now considering a permanent injunction. Now, in other court news, remember how I was worried, if you listened to Unjustified with me and Andy McCabe this Sunday, I was worried that if the judge who's deciding whether Lindsey Halligan was appointed properly and lawfully, that judge is not in the Eastern District of Virginia. That's a Clinton appointee named Judge Curry. He's in the District of South Carolina. And today, apparently, he asked for some additional stuff. And you'll recall, I was worried that if he went ahead and dismissed the charges based on unlawful appointment of Lindsey Halligan, we wouldn't get to find out what was said, what Lindsey Halligan said in that grand jury room, because there's a separate motion filed by Jim Comey specifically right now, probably Letitia James soon as well, saying that we need discovery in the grand jury proceedings because there's plenty of evidence showing that it's likely that Lindsey Halligan, totally inexperienced and, liar, misled the grand jury. And I was like, man, if this other judge, Judge Curry, dismisses on Lindsey Halligan's appointment, we won't get to find out if there was malfeasance in the grand jury room by Lindsey Halligan. But today, today, apparently the judge wanted all of the grand jury tapes to review in camera, like in private, not public, so that we wouldn't be able to know what went on in the grand jury room. But he wanted all that. And I guess the Department of Justice refused to hand over the parts where Lindsey Halligan presented the case. They handed over the tapes, the audio and the video of the testimony of the FBI agent in Comey's case, who's tainted by having seen privileged information, by the way. So his testimony probably might get thrown out anyway. But he wants the rest of it. He wants to know what Lindsey Halligan said to the jury in his job deciding whether or not she was unlawfully appointed. So we might get to find out what she told the grand jury in the Comey case, at least, after all. And I would recommend, or I would think that since Letitia James's case about Lindsey Halligan's appointment is consolidated with Comey's before this judge, if I were her, I'd file, hey, I'd like to know what she said in my grand jury too. We'll see what ends up happening. Also in the news, Trump is threatening to go ballistic on Senate Republicans who won't nuke the filibuster to open the government. Now, keep in mind, Senate Republicans can nuke the filibuster for just this bill, meaning it wouldn't be permanent. So if they nuke it forever, it's because they want to, which is frightening. Also, the Associated Press is reporting that with temperatures beginning to drop in areas across the United States, we have a huge cold snap coming. Some states are warning that funding for the program is being delayed because of the government shutdown, which is now in its 5th week because Mike Johnson is afraid of the discharge petition to release the Epstein files and refuses to swear in Adelita Grijalva. The anticipated delay comes as a majority of the 5.9 million households served by the federally funded Heating and Cooling Assistance Program are grappling with the sudden postponement of benefits through SNAP, which helps about 1 in 8 Americans buy groceries. Money is running out for other safety net programs as well, and energy prices are soaring. Now, as we talked about yesterday, Trump came back to that judge who ordered him to use the SNAP reserves to pay SNAP funding for November. Trump came back and said, we can do half. And now he doesn't want to do it at all. And he's saying we shouldn't pay a penny of SNAP benefits, which they're required to do by law, using the funds that are available by law. He said we shouldn't pay any of it until the government is reopened. So as John Fugelsang said in one of his more viral posts online, he's basically saying, if you don't, we'll starve you if you don't agree to let us gut health care. That's the deal that he's trying to cut right now. So we'll keep an eye on this. And the government shutdown, it's going to be another week at least. But Trump is getting pretty impatient and he wants the Senate Republicans to nuke the filibuster. And he actually went out of his way to say like I said, he'll go ballistic on Senate Republicans. I'll call them at 3 a.m. or whatever he posted on Truth Social. Also, Dick Cheney died. All right, everybody, stick around. We'll be right back with the hot notes.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to tell you about our new sponsor, Coyuchi. Coyuchi is in a league of its own when it comes to bedding, bath, and home products. And their organic sateen and flannel sheet sets are the key to more comfortable, healthier sleep year-round. I care about what goes on my skin and into my body, so why not what I sleep in? Coyuchi's organic, relaxed linen duvet cover blows me away. The color is incredible. It's this deep, beautiful peacock teal. The texture is perfect. It's soft. It's sateen. It feels wonderful. And it is cooling when it needs to be and cozy when it needs to be. This is a wellness that you can feel every night when you're sleeping. And it all comes in recycled packaging, by the way, which is cool. And we have a deal for you from Coyuchi. You can get 20% off when you visit coyuchi.com/dailybeans. Sleep is part of your wellness routine. It's my favorite thing, and your sheets should be part of your wellness routine too. Coyuchi makes every set from natural fibers and certifies them to be free of toxins and harmful chemicals, so nothing questionable sits against your skin all night. They're incredibly soft and gentle, which makes falling asleep easier and mornings nicer. Style comes naturally here too. You can choose the subtle sheen of Cloud Soft Organic Sateen or the cozy feel of Cloud Brushed Organic Flannel. That's my next purchase. Peaceful botanicals, vintage-inspired patterns, calming hues. It all brings a relaxed, nature-first look to your bedroom. And the best part is how they wear. With each wash, Coyuchi sheets get softer and softer. No pilling, no tearing, and they're crafted to last so you can sleep well and safely while investing in pieces that stay beautiful for years. So if you want healthy, handcrafted luxury bedding that lasts a lifetime, you need Coyuchi. Get 20% off your first order when you visit Coyuchi.com/dailybeans. That's Coyuchi.com/dailybeans to get 20% off. Coyuchi.com/dailybeans. You'll be glad you did. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the Hot Notes.
Hot Notes.
All right, first up from the Times, Bryce Current, the police chief in Durango, Colorado, knew there was a problem the moment he saw the video of an immigration agent putting a protester into what the chief saw was a chokehold and throwing her down an embankment. Immigration agents had arrested a Colombian man and his 2 children on their way to school last week, provoking a furious response from this liberal college town of 20,000 in the mountains of southwest Colorado. Dozens of residents, many with their arms linked, descended on the small Immigration and Customs Enforcement building where the family was being held. They set up a camp outside the razor wire gates and tried to block authorities from removing the family from Durango. What set the protest apart from similar clashes between residents and immigration agents in Chicago, Los Angeles, and other cities was Chief Current's determination that masked federal agents, the one specifically involved in this scuffle, crossed a line, and his request for an investigation. He said he even considered filing criminal charges himself against this agent. Quote, "It appeared to be an out of policy and possibly illegal use of force," he said in an interview at police headquarters. At Chief Current's request, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation has opened an investigation into the incident in Durango, putting Democratic-led Colorado on a potential collision course with the Trump administration, which has threatened to prosecute any local officials if they charge federal agents carrying out Trump's immigration crackdown. This is good. We still haven't seen an arrest or a prosecution of an agent breaking laws in states. So I hope we see one here in Colorado. Next up from John Seidel at the Chicago Sun-Times, the Trump administration's ability to enforce immigration laws in Illinois would grind to a halt if a judge enters a proposed order governing conditions inside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in the west suburban Broadview facility. A Justice Department lawyer said that in court today, on Tuesday. Our enforcement would grind to a halt because we have nowhere to put arrested people, because you aren't allowed to detain anyone at that facility for longer than 12 hours. Well, here's an idea. If you don't have anywhere to put someone, stop detaining people. A U.S. district judge named Robert Gettleman told her, this Department of Justice person, if the conditions are unconstitutional, so be it. Meaning, then everything grinds to a halt. He said what's been alleged in court filings is disgusting. And he even said it's obviously unconstitutional to force someone to sleep on the floor next to a toilet. The judge hasn't issued a formal ruling, but he did say he was going to enter a temporary restraining order today, Wednesday. He spent Tuesday morning listening to the testimony of 3 people held in recent weeks in the processing center that has become a de facto detention center for the Fed's so-called Operation Midway Blitz. Pablo Moreno Gonzalez said he was held there last week from Wednesday till Friday. He described being held in a cell with as many as 150 men, where people were gathered inches away from the toilet. And you can't go because everyone's seeing you. That's a quote from Mr. Gonzalez. It was too much. It was too much. That's what Gonzalez said at one point, breaking down on the witness stand. I just can't deal with it, he said. Felipe Augustin Zamancona, arrested last Thursday in Wheeling, told the judge he had to wake someone up because they were sleeping beside the toilet and he needed to use it. And Claudia Carolina Pereira Guevara testified through a remote link from Honduras that she and other female detainees had to use garbage bags to unclog a toilet at one point. Quote, "One day we asked for a broom so that we ourselves could clean, and they refused." All 3 testified about their emotional ties to the United States. Gonzalez said his family is here, and I don't have anyone in Mexico. Zamacona said his whole life is here in the United States, and Guevara told the courtroom she doesn't know when she might see her young children again. Gonzalez and Guevara testified with the help of a Spanish interpreter. DOJ's Jana Brady cross-examined all 3, pointing to their relatively short amounts of time they'd spent at Broadview and whether they were speculating about the number of people in the cells. Guevara said she had spent the most time there out of the 3 people. She said she was there for 5 days. The testimony came during another pivotal hearing at a federal courthouse in Chicago's Loop, where lawyers have argued in recent weeks over the Fed's treatment of protesters and whether Trump should be allowed to deploy the National Guard troops here. Now the focus is on the detention facility that's also been the site of near-daily protests during the Trump administration's deportation campaign. The Sun-Times and WBEZ have documented how the Federal Immigration Processing Center, which is meant to hold people for a few hours at a time, is instead keeping them for multiple days. Government lawyers have recently acknowledged in court that Broadview is, quote, not equipped to be an overnight facility. The new lawsuit brought by the MacArthur Justice Center and Roger Baldwin Foundation of ACLU alleges the feds, quote, are now warehousing people at Broadview for days on end. Someone else who's been protesting at Broadview? Candidate for Illinois' 9th District, Kat Abughazaleh, and I'll talk with her about this later in the show. And as I said, Judge Gettleman, by the end of the day, said he's going to issue a temporary restraining order in the case. So huge win. And we should have more information on that temporary restraining order tomorrow. And in the coming weeks, we'll see if it grinds Operation Midway Blitz to a halt. I hope it does. Next up from NBC, FBI Director Kash Patel's tenure has been marred by a series of avoidable problems, but last week was especially difficult for the former podcaster. No shade to podcasters, I am one, but that's funny. On Friday morning, for example, the Bureau's controversial director alerted the public to a potential terrorist attack in Michigan that he said the FBI had thwarted. Senior law enforcement personnel were not pleased by this. As MSNBC reported, Patel's public disclosure came before investigators had a chance to flesh out any key details, including whether the attack was actually imminent. A day earlier, Patel forced out a special agent in charge. Not because of wrongdoing, but because Aaron Tapp, a 22-year veteran at the Bureau, had appeared in documents recently released by the Senate Republicans as part of the partisan hysterics surrounding a faux scandal known as Arctic frost. And then there's the plane controversy. A couple years ago, when Patel was known as little more than a conspiratorial media personality, he publicly derided then FBI Director Chris Wray for allegedly using an FBI jet for personal reasons. 2 years later, as Wray's successor, Patel is confronting a series of difficult questions about his use of an FBI jet for a personal trip to Pennsylvania, where his country singer girlfriend was performing, and then on to Nashville, where she lives. Soon after, Bloomberg Law reported, the FBI forced out a senior official overseeing aviation shortly after Director Kash Patel grew outraged about revelations of his publicly available jet logs indicating he'd flown to see his musician girlfriend perform. It's according to 3 people familiar. Stephen Palmer, 27-year veteran of the FBI, has become the 3rd head of the Critical Incident Response Group, which includes FBI pilots, to be fired or removed in Patel's short regime, adding to a year filled with retributive terminations. According to the report, which has not been independently verified by MSNBC, Palmer's exit was made official on Friday, and a replacement to head the Bureau's crisis management operations, including hostage rescue and bomb detection, has already been posted on the FBI's website. Now, for his part, Patel didn't deny the accuracy of the report, although he did publish an odd item to social media condemning disgustingly baseless attacks against his girlfriend, whom he says is a rock-solid conservative and a country music sensation who has done more for this nation than most will in 10 lifetimes. Really? More than most? All gave some gave all, I guess. But as Patel really ought to understand, the underlying controversy has nothing to do with his girlfriend and everything to do with his own alleged abuses. That he seemed a little too eager to change the subject with a nonsensical response suggests Patel is facing difficult questions he doesn't yet know how to answer. The fact that he's anywhere near the FBI, let alone in charge of it, it's just unserious. We live in a circus. All right, everybody. Up next is my interview with Kat Abughazaleh. You don't want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. My cats are chaos gremlins. I love them. One of them recently tried to sit on top of the toaster while I was making breakfast. I adore them. I want them to be healthy, even though they make questionable choices. But Smalls gives me real ingredients in their food. Stuff that I can actually recognize. No mystery pellets, just fresh human-grade nutrition that helps with digestion and keeps them energized for more toaster adventures. So give your cat an early holiday gift by checking out our sponsor, Smalls. Smalls cat food is protein-packed. It's recipes made from preservative-free ingredients, and it's delivered right to your door. For a limited time, get 60% off your first order. 60% off your first order, plus free shipping. Just head to smalls.com/dailybeans. Getting started with Smalls is simple. Just answer a few quick questions about your cat's diet, health, and favorite flavors, and they create a personalized sampler that actually feels like it was designed for your cat, because it was. I tried it myself with a little experiment at home. I set out 2 bowls, one with their old food and one with Smalls, and they went straight for Smalls without hesitation every time. It was the best thing they had ever had, and they continue to make a mad dash to their food bowls in the morning when I give it to them. Now, since making the switch, I noticed actual changes. Their energy feels steady throughout the day instead of spiking and crashing. Their fur is softer and shinier. Hairballs barely happen anymore, and the litter box smells better. And I love that Smalls uses fresh, real ingredients that genuinely support their health. And 88% of cat owners see noticeable improvements with Smalls. And if your cat's picky, you can try it risk-free. They will fully refund it if they don't love it. So what are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve. For a limited time, because you listen to the Daily Beans, you can get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping. Just head to smalls.com/dailybeans. One last time, 60% off your first order and free shipping when you head to smalls.com/dailybeans. You'll be glad you did. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Joining me today, I'm really happy to be speaking with this candidate for Illinois' 9th District because there's so much going on in Chicago right now, particularly at Broadview ICE facility. If you've been watching the show or watching the breakdown over on Midas, you know that the DHS has been, first of all, lying in public statements about things that are happening on the ground in Chicago. They are ginning up footage to make it look like a war zone. In some cases, they have actually been caught red-handed by investigative journalists saying that what's going on in Broadview, the stuff that they're ginning up in Broadview, is actually happening in Portland so that they can use that in their case in Portland to see if they can get the military deployed. And there are tons of, what I consider false arrests happening. And there's a lot of lawsuits that are about to be springing up from these false arrests. And so many terrible things have been happening on the ground. We've had in Chicago that raid on that apartment building in the middle of the night where they rappelled off Black Hawk helicopters, pulled people out, zip-tied children, some who were nude, and they separated people by race into different U-Haul vans. It's absolutely terrifying what's going on the ground. And joining us today to talk about it, somebody who's on the front line, somebody who's running for Congress, as I said, in Illinois' 9th. Please welcome Kat Abughazaleh. Hi, Kat. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I haven't personally been indicted myself, but so maybe I'm a little bit up on the ladder of doing well than you are. But I know that you're a fighter, and you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for the people of Illinois and the district that you want to run in. I know that you can't talk too much about the details of your indictment because that is an ongoing criminal probe. It's important to maintain the integrity of your defense. But can we talk more broadly about some of the arrests and attacks on people, peaceful protesters, members of the clergy, journalists that are happening, that you're witnessing, and you yourself, that you're witnessing on the ground in Chicago?
Yeah, it's, the right loves and has always loved to characterize Chicago as a war zone. And this has never been an accurate characterization. That's motivated by hatred of diversity, hatred of blue cities, even going back as far as the late 19th century, hatred of the labor movement. And they are doing the same thing right now. They're trying to characterize Chicago as a war zone. And I have been on the ground here. This is one-sided violence and one-sided escalation by ICE. So I have been protesting at the Broadview Processing Center, which is where ICE headquarters its operations in the Chicago area. When someone gets abducted, they are brought there. And people aren't supposed to be held for more than 12 hours at a time because it's not a detention facility. Instead, people are being held for days or weeks without beds or hot meals or access to hygienic facilities. Lately, we've been hearing of people going into cardiac arrest, being carried out on stretchers, being denied water, being given fake translators so they'll sign their own self-deportation papers. And the crimes that I've witnessed by ICE are infringements on our First Amendment rights, but also just excessive force that I've never seen at a protest in my life. And I've seen excessive force at protests, but this is something different. It's scarier. There's a complete lack of accountability. I remember there was this video where an ICE officer threw a blonde woman to the ground. That blonde woman was myself. That was actually the third time an ICE agent has done that, the second time that day. And earlier that day, because we would get there around 5 a.m. to bear witness to the deportations that they would do early in the morning. An ICE agent shot pepper balls at our feet and then said, "Your First Amendment rights are on the sidewalk." I have watched as they shoot people in the face with pepper balls, as they deploy tear gas. They threw a flashbang at someone's face, and that man was obviously in shock, and we had to get him medical attention because he kept denying it. Shooting us with rubber bullets, with snipers on roofs, and shooting into the windows of local businesses around that center. The tear gas just flows at Broadview, and it seems like there's no accountability. There are no consequences for when they do this.
Yeah, and there's currently a temporary restraining order barring the use of tear gas without multiple verbal warnings and giving protesters, journalists, members of the clergy, et cetera, a chance to respond to those warnings. Gregory Bovino was actually on the stand in Judge Ellis's courtroom recently, being asked about his actual participation in throwing a tear gas canister without giving any warning. And my concern here is, Bovino is Customs Border Protection. And recently, the Trump administration has swept through and gotten rid of all the people in ICE leadership because apparently ICE was actually too woke for what they wanted. They wanted the cruelty of kind of what Gregory Bovino is doing there with Operation Midway Blitz, and have replaced a bunch of those ICE personnel with people in Customs and Border Protection. And the people who were in charge of that purge are none other than Corey Lewandowski, who is advising Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino himself. So Greg Bovino, I think I've been covering him for a while, is truly, he's a Himmler. He's a secret police guy. He wants to do these brutal actions that you're talking about. I'm thinking of the woman in Lincoln Square who was rammed, that was the journalist from WGN Chicago that was taken down in Lincoln Square. But a woman was rammed by an ICE vehicle and then shot at. And the officer said, "Do something, bitch," and then opened fire on her. And then, of course, DHS secretary or spokeswoman Trish McLaughlin came out and said, "Oh, no, she rammed us. She cornered us, and they were the aggressors." How many times do they have to lie and say they rammed us, they boxed us in, they drove toward us, and that's why we had to open fire at them or dispense tear gas in that situation? It just seems like I haven't seen a truthful press release from the Department of Homeland Security this entire time.
Yeah, that's because this is what they do. They lie. And we really need media and Democratic leaders to catch up to that fact. I understand that it is scary to realize that ICE is now Trump's secret police. That is a scary reality, but it is not 2014 anymore. You cannot take these people at their word. They lie, and you cannot give them the benefit of the doubt. That's why when we say abolish ICE, it's not just a catchphrase. Any government agency that can be utilized like this does not deserve to exist. There is no way to reform it. It has to be abolished. Additionally, CBP, they have their jurisdiction goes like 100 miles from any international border. That counts oceans, which means that pretty much every major city in the U.S. is under CBP's jurisdiction. That doesn't need to be 100 miles. That can be like 5 miles for them to do their job and not have full legal authority to terrorize Americans across the country.
Yeah, no, I agree. If they can show me they can run 100 miles, then maybe I, would be on board with that. Now, Trump may lose his bid. Right now, he's trying to deploy the National Guard in Chicago as well as Portland and Los Angeles, and he's being blocked from that right now because under, I think it's Title 10 United States Code 12406, which is the authority he's trying to use, it says that you have to, the regular forces have to fail first, which some are arguing means the military. And he hasn't sent the military in, so he doesn't have the authority to send in the National Guard. And the Supreme Court might agree with that. They've asked for briefings, letter briefings on what you think regular forces means under that particular law. My concern is that if Trump is not given permission or authority to deploy the National Guard into Chicago, where you are, that he might invoke the Insurrection Act. Him and Stephen Miller have talked about this quite extensively, and he wanted to do it back, on January 6th as well, but was some folks in the administration put the kibosh on that. But there's no more adults in the room. Do you see a possibility? Do you see a world where he may invoke the Insurrection Act in order to get around posse comitatus and deploy the military against the people?
Absolutely. This is his end goal. Trump doesn't want democracy. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He doesn't care about the country. He doesn't even care about his voters. He cares about himself, and he wants to rule until the day he dies. And he wants to ensure that this country is a means to enrich himself, not a government that takes care of its people. We are a means for him, a means for more power and more money. And this is why impeachment can't just be like a tagline. In addition to the idea of abolish ICE, impeaching Trump is a moral and legal imperative that every Democrat needs to take on. If you are running for office as a Democrat and you aren't comfortable saying that you want to abolish ICE, I do not trust you. If you are not comfortable saying that you would impeach this president, I do not trust you.
Yeah, and let's take that a step further. If people are saying they do not want anyone in this administration to be held accountable, I also do not trust you. You had said, I think you posted, you and I had a back and forth on social media, a discussion about people like Kristi Noem, Greg Bovino being tried at The Hague. And I agree. However, we aren't signatories on that, but I think people should be running on that, right? Because if these folks aren't held accountable, what is going to be the deterrent? The fact that we didn't hold Nixon accountable, the fact that we didn't hold the Confederates accountable in the Civil War, the fact that Mueller didn't hold anybody accountable, that we couldn't get, Trump held accountable under the Biden administration, gives them the chutzpah to continue to do things that because they don't feel that they'll be held accountable. Talk a little bit about the accountability aspect of this and what you'll do to hold them accountable when you're elected in the 9th.
Absolutely. We can't just pretend this was like a bad dream. We did that in 2020. I think a lot of people voted in 2020 because we wanted the world from before the pandemic. And that world is never coming back. And that sucks. But the good news is that we can build something much better because the status quo wasn't working for most Americans back then either. And if we get past Trump, we can't just say, well, we fired some of the guys in charge and like maybe we're going to look into it, but most people will forget. Let's also keep, hounding on trans kids and immigrants and throwing them under the bus. No, that is not the way forward. We need accountability and we need trials. First, we need to sign the Rome Statute. I absolutely meant what I said of Kristi Noem should be tried at The Hague, and we should be signatories to that. We are in an increasingly interconnected world. And if we truly want to lead the world in terms of justice, in terms of being, that shining light, we have to show that we are willing to and we will abide by international law and hold our own people accountable. But we also need to unmask these agents. We need them to be held accountable for their crimes. We need to investigate what has happened. And once again, we need to abolish ICE. I can't say it enough. This administration is trying to tear everything apart. And, I feel like a broken record here because that is scary. But that also means that afterwards, when the whole forest is burnt down, we can plant some incredible seeds. We can build something that was healthier, that was stronger than before. I think part of the reason we got into this mess goes, as far back as Nixon, even further, of not holding people who commit crimes against their countrymen accountable. People who are committing crimes against humanity need to be held accountable. And that future that I'm talking about, one where everyone can afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and spend, where everyone has equal rights, that should be the motto for the Democratic Party, and followed by action and not just words. This means not just calling for that accountability, but also using your resources right now, party resources, donor resources, campaign resources, to meet people's material needs, to fill in the gaps that Trump is creating. We're doing that with my campaign. Our campaign office doubles as a mutual aid hub. We try to make sure that every event doubles another purpose, whether that's a backpack drive, a food drive, raising money for a local organization. Our kickoff event, we asked for pads and tampons instead of donations and ended up collecting over 5,600 for the Chicago Period Collective. These are things that we could do at an even wider scale if we are committed to actually representing people and not this idea of centrism where the center is just when you move to the right over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's backsliding toward white supremacy, toward authoritarianism.
Exactly.
If you leave that loophole open, people are going to take advantage of it, as evidenced by what DHS is doing. And let's talk a little bit about what you plan to do when you're elected in the midterms. This is a midterm election
of 2026.
Yes. This is your election is 2026. It's not a special early election or anything like that. As far as Department of Homeland Security goes, it was created after 9/11, and it was created to prevent terrorism and terrorist attacks. And as we know, in the last decade, reports have shown, studies have shown, data have shown the number one terrorist threat in the United States is domestic violent extremism, white supremacy.
Yes.
By far.
Yes.
It outpaces everything. And if DHS, if that's not their main focus, then they need to go. I don't understand why they exist. So if you're elected, what will you do to start that process?
Yeah, so this is actually my background. I covered the far right. I started my career at Media Matters. My specialty was Tucker Carlson. I then, when I was laid off after Elon Musk's lawsuit, I worked with Mother Jones, Ateo News, People for the American Way. I freelanced. My entire career has been built on effectively fighting and even winning against the right. And I and my colleagues have spent years warning Democrats about the threat of white supremacy. We told them about January 6th before it happened. We told them about COVID misinformation, where the DEI, CRT, anti-trans panic would lead, how hard the alarm bells were sounding when Tucker mentioned the Great Replacement theory on air for the first time. And they haven't listened. Over and over again, we heard that we were being over dramatic, that we need to compromise. I don't think you have to compromise with white supremacists. And I don't think you have to take bad faith arguments in good faith. So from the technical perspective, we have our members of Congress need to be pushing for accountability, those trials we were talking about before, but we also need to push for massive reform. We can't just restore what Trump has destroyed. We have to restore and expand it. This counts for federal workers. This counts for spending, for education, for everything Trump has tried to destroy. Let's bring it back twice as strong and really we're the richest country in the world. There's no reason we shouldn't have a social safety net. There is no reason that we shouldn't have more effective and efficient systems like universal health care and building more housing without being at the mercy of corporate landlords. And then there's also the communication aspect. This is something that both parties, but especially the Democratic Party, have been criticized for over the last few years, is an unwillingness to actually engage in digital media. I feel like a lot of our leaders kind of see it as a tool of manipulation. You insert this meme and votes come out, and that's not what it is. The online isn't all of real life, but the real life also is a part of the online. Those things used to be totally separate, and now they're not the same, but they coexist. We need leaders that are willing to use the bully pulpit, that are willing to use the leverage of communication, of their public position, to speak out against issues, to speak out for the people, and then also to put their bodies on the line. As we've seen, fascism doesn't first start with, people in the House of Representatives. It starts with 238 men who get deported to El Salvador without due process. It starts with people that their families are too scared to find a lawyer because they're worried that their children will be abducted or deported in the middle of the night. And that's why it is so important, and it makes us all safer, for representatives and anyone with power or privilege or a platform to be in the streets right now to protest with the people, and not just protest, but put your body on the line. If ICE is in your area, in your district, you need to be doing everything you can to be providing for the people who are too scared to go outside, disseminating whistles throughout your community. And when you hear about ICE anywhere nearby you, you need to go there and stand up to those agents, because unfortunately in the system we've built, a congressperson being injured by ICE is a huge news story. When the thousands of people they've been terrorizing already, it just becomes an everyday occurrence. When Elon Musk marched his army of teenage incels into the Treasury Department, every Democrat should have been arm in arm in front of every entrance and every exit of that building and called their bluff. Because fascists are weak. And when you call it, like Chris Van Hollen's been doing, they usually fold. And if they don't, then you get the people are angry.
Yeah, Van Hollen's been doing an excellent job. And that's why I appreciate the work that you're doing to provide oversight at Broadview. And I'm assuming once elected in Congress, you'll have more of an oversight role. to be able to look at ICE facilities and the detention facilities and the conditions there.
Yes, that's one of the issues right now is Congress people are allowed by law to inspect these facilities. ICE is not letting them in. Representative Delia Ramirez has been pushing to be able to inspect these facilities. She's been doing a fantastic job, but nationwide, we need our representatives to keep coming back, not just a one and done, not just showing up for the photo op. When your people get tear gassed, you need to be there with them. When they do not allow you to inspect a facility, you come back the next week. Even if it is a pain in the ass to fly back from DC every single weekend, you do it because these people are counting on you. Yeah,
agreed. And just a couple more questions about what you would do when you're elected. Particularly, we can, with accountability, we already know, I'm assuming that you'd be on board with impeachment inquiries. You'd be on board with holding hearings, unmasking ICE, bringing them in, using the power of the majority, which I believe we will get in 2026, to hold them accountable that way. It's not criminal, and if you make a criminal referral to Pam Bondi, she'll shit can it immediately. But it's still something that can bring public awareness to what has been going on more broadly. But what are some other ways that you, once in Congress, would look to hold some of these folks accountable, at least congressionally or legislatively speaking?
Yeah, unfortunately, with this administration and their complete disregard of the law, there is only so much that we can do as members of Congress. But I don't think that's an excuse to throw up your hands and say we can't do anything. That communication aspect is really important, and it's vastly underutilized in the Democratic Party. But I also think there's this aspect that we need to be slowing the gears as much as possible. And it doesn't matter if it's rude. It doesn't matter if it's not traditional congressional decorum. If you need to call a point of order every 30 seconds to delay people from losing their benefits, to keep ICE funding from being put into, millions and millions of dollars of military gear to be used against civilians, you do it. You get in the way and you do your best to expose every legislative vulnerability that you can. I remember one of my old bosses used to say that, Republicans seem to want to bring about the downfall of America, of democracy. And a lot of Democrats seem to want to make sure that everyone's in an orderly line while it happens. If we love these, legislative caveats and rules of order, exploit them. And do it shamelessly. This is life or death. It might not be life or death for you as a representative. You've got good health care. You've got a decent salary. You've got, an entire security team that is ready and standing by you. Most Americans don't. This is life or death for your constituents, and we need our representatives to act like it.
Yeah, and I think there's a hunger for that. Left, right, and center, everybody on the bottom wants to see our representatives at least get in the ring. You might lose the fight, but get in the ring. Yeah, I think is kind of the message that I'm seeing mostly from the people that I talk to on a daily basis. Now, what else are you looking to do for the constituents of Illinois' 9th? Because I know right now affordability is a big issue across the country. We've seen that campaign work really well for Mamdani in New York as in the mayoral race. What are some of the other issues that you want to fight for the 9th district?
So I have the most comprehensive platform in my race. And if anyone's curious, you can look at catforillinois.com, cat with a K. Our top issues are anti-authoritarianism, which is that fighting against the right. The house is on fire and we can't fix it till we put the fire out. But our other big issue is what I call basic existence. And it's the idea that everyone deserves to afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and spend. And the reality is that universal healthcare, protections against price gouging, and building more housing with federal incentives to work with local companies, as well as not being beholden to corporate landlords, actually saves us money. We can even lower taxes for the working class by including a cost of living exemption and taxing wealth for people making $100 million or more. We would have even more income and not be ensuring that everyone's lives are just a means of profit for people like Elon Musk. The reason I phrase it as one issue, basic existence, is because these are all tied together. And frankly, everything on my platform is, whether it's education or climate policy, transit policy, foreign policy. But a lot of times our representatives across both aisles, or I guess there's one aisle, but across both parties, try to treat them as one issue, as, we address healthcare and then we're done, or we address groceries and then we're done. But they are all tied together. People, if your material needs aren't met, this is how you spiral into extremism. The most common cause of extremism and believing mis and disinformation is fear. And billionaires like Rupert Murdoch capitalize on that and spend their own fortunes to keep people in those bubbles, to keep a hold on their own power. So meeting people's material needs, we can't treat it with a piecemeal approach. We need to have bold legislation, go in with a New Deal mindset, and actually try to meet people's needs twice as hard as we did before.
Amazing. Tell everybody before I let you go where they can find, follow, support, text bank, postcard, volunteer for you or anything, because there's so many ways. I think one of the side effects of COVID was we found so many new ways to reach voters, and so many ways for people who are disabled have found new ways to help reach voters and do their part. But where can people find and follow you and support your campaign?
Absolutely. You can find more about me at catforillinois.com. That's cat with a K. We would love your support as a volunteer, as a voter, or as a donor. You can donate. We're a grassroots campaign. I don't take any money from billionaires, Republican-funded PACs like AIPAC, or corporate PACs. And, we are going to win this thing. This is a grassroots campaign built on believing in values and not being beholden to any larger interests. And if you want to volunteer, you can volunteer at discord.gg/catforillinois.
Awesome. I think by the time this airs, we're recording this before election results, and it's going to air after election results. I think we're going to have more evidence that people power can beat money power, like we saw in Wisconsin, Absolutely. For example. So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time. But everybody else, please stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Good news, everyone. Then good news, everyone.
Good news, good news.
And if you have any good news, if it's little or huge, if it happened yesterday or 50 years ago, we want to hear your amazing stories because they lift all of us up and we all will feel less alone and we all can get a nice laugh or put a smile on our faces. It's so important for this community. So send your good news to us. You can also send a shout out to a loved one or a nonprofit doing great work, maybe a food bank you want us to support while SNAP is unfunded by this regime. Or maybe some, there's a lot of places where you can donate to help people get heating and cooling in some of these weather snaps that we're seeing, since that's also impacted. Maybe there's a small business in your area that could use a boost. Maybe you want to give a shout out to a government program that's helped you or a loved one. We would love to hear about that. We'd love to get it all on the record for posterity. You can send it to us at dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. You can also send us your good trouble ideas, because we have a good trouble segment, usually after the hot notes or right at the top of the good news. So send those in to us. And all you got to do to get your stuff right on the air is pay your pod pet tariff, which these days it just means attach a photo of anything. It used to just be your pet, right? Like if you had a shelter pup and we would try to guess what breeds were in it, you can do that. Any animal photo works though. If it's your animal or some random one off the internet, you can send us an adoptable pet in your area. We'll try to find him a home. You can send us pictures of what you're making and creating to sort of take your mind off what's going on in the news, whether you're knitting or sewing or crocheting or painting or writing or creating music or developing websites or making video games or role-playing games, whatever it is you're making or creating, you're growing something in your garden. We would love to see photos of that too. It can spark ideas for other folks listening to maybe start some interesting making and creating of their own. You can also send photos of family, awkward family photos, baby pictures, maybe a photo of a bird watching. I've been into bird watching lately, which can be either watching birds or flipping the bird to Trump buildings. Either way, send it all to us. dailybeanspod.com, click on contact. First up is your good trouble. And today's good trouble is Ice Out San Diego. It's November 6th, 2025 at 10 a.m. at the Federal Building at 880 Front Street in San Diego. This is about more than immigration. It's about our constitutional rights. We reject attacks on the First Amendment. Community members and journalists, intimidated, or silenced for speaking out. We reject due process violations, our neighbors funneled through a system without meaningful access to counsel or a fair day in court. We reject Fourth Amendment abuses, warrantless stops, raids, Kavanaugh stops, and searches that trample protections against unreasonable seizures, and federal overreach, heavy-handed tactics that undermine local values, public safety, and trust while attempting to force local governments to act as extensions of federal immigration enforcement. We refuse to stay silent. Families should not live in fear of being torn apart. Children should not grow up watching parents ripped from their homes. No one should be treated like a criminal simply for existing or for exercising their right to speak, organize, and seek redress. This is more than a protest. It's a stand for dignity, justice, and the right of every family to live free from fear. So bring your friends, your signs, and your voices. Together, we can show that San Diego stands for community, not cages. And for more information, we'll have some links in the show notes and also a link to RSVP. This is called Ice Out San Diego, and it is tomorrow. All right, your first good news submission is from Shelley, pronouns she and her. Hello, dear hearts, queens of the Leguminati. I want you to know that every day when I hear the good news segment, I think, I have good news. Your pod has gotten me in the habit of thinking about good things in life, often microdoses, or how even though we're living through the shittiest timeline ever, not everything is bad. I always listen while driving and think I should email when I get home, but then I don't. But not today. Here I am. I'm sending another bit of good news from Ohio. In a neighboring town to Pickerington, we had a turnout of 500 or 600 people in the small red town of Lancaster, pronounced with Lancaster, not too much G, and the emphasis on the first syllable, Lancaster. I debuted my protest parasol at No Kings 2.0, an idea I had at the last No Kings when I didn't have enough dexterity for both my sign and my umbrella. The signs are attached with Velcro, so I can change them out as needed, which unfortunately I think we're going to have to keep doing for a while more. I also handed out business cards printed with information about 5 calls on one side and resist bot on the other. I've started asking people at protests if they've called their reps, and they've often responded no, usually because they were scared to do so or didn't know what to say. So I share these with them. 2 easy sites and apps to encourage them to give it a try. And the Lancaster No Kings 2, a man asked me if I had more cards because he wanted to pass them out. So I gave him a bunch, and then he came back and got some more. Turns out he was walking through a crowd telling them how to contact their reps using the info on the cards. It was awesome. I've attached pics of me with my protest parasol and the signs out on the clothesline so you can see them all. Also, attaching my rescue pup, Juniper. Probably easy to guess at least one of her main breeds. I'll put her full DNA test results below. Thanks for all you do, both of you. I really appreciate you getting news from you each day and enjoy the sweary energy you both bring to the shit show. It feels good to know we're not alone in this. We will get through this together. Okay. I am totally going to get a protest umbrella, a protest parasol, because I'm always like get sunburnt by the end of the march. Look at this. No Kings, Joy is Resistance, Due Process. These are great. And you can move them around. Oh, that's so cool. What a good idea. And look at that pup. I'm guessing part pity, part chow, who has the big smiles? Let's see what we've got here. Staffy, Boston, and a little bit of Bulldog. Yeah, nice. It's the Bulldog that has the big smile. What a gorgeous rescue pup. Thank you so much for that, Shelley. And I'm glad that you even if you don't send in good news every day, I'm glad that you are able to think of it. That's the whole idea of the good news. It's just to have a good thing pop in your head, a fun story pop in your head to make you smile. Something somebody sends in might remind you of some good thing that's happened to you. And if you get a chance to type it out and send it in, great. And if not, you got to smile. Everybody wins. All right. Next up is Sam, pronouns she and her. I want to give a shout out to a parent and volunteer group here in our little central PA town, Warwick United. It started with a drive for free period products in the high school and middle school in our district. Over the time span of 2 school years, Warwick United has donated more than 40,000 menstrual products to the schools. Incredible. Their advocacy for free products got the ear of our state first lady, and we were invited to speak about the importance of free products in the school at the governor's mansion. And the governor last year added $3 million to the state budget for free period products for schools because of the advocacy groups like Warwick United. Sam, you are doing the work. I love it. This group works every day to support all the students in our district, from shoes to clothes to Thanksgiving dinners and fully packed backpacks at the beginning of the school year. Right now, they're collecting grocery gift cards for all the families in our town that have lost their SNAP benefits. I wanted to mention them because it's amazing what a small group of people can do to help their community. While the world around us appears to be a shithole dumpster fire, there are amazing people each day volunteering to help their neighbors. Knowing this and that these wonderful people are in my community is what helps me get through the day. That and listening to the beans. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Pet tariff, I finally have one to share. We adopted Bennett last night. Last night, he's a baby. He's a brand new baby. He's a rescue from a wonderful group that takes strays and abandoned dogs in the rural South and finds fosters for him here in Pennsylvania. He's a delightful boy. We'd love to have your input on his breeds. Spoilers, we don't know for sure, but suspect cattle dog with some pit and something small. Yeah, that looks like, not a whippet, but what's the one with the skinny face and the biggie ears? Oh, I can't even remember. I should be able to remember this dog breed, but I can't. Maybe Vizsla or, well, you know what? 100% awesome is what this dog is. So we're interested when you get those DNA results, let us know. He's so cool. Congratulations. Welcome to the family, buddy. Next up from Andrew, pronouns he and him. Hearing Dana talk about wearing a tinfoil hat on the video pod made me want to send you a satire conspiracy theory about tinfoil hats. So it used to be tinfoil was big in the U.S. shortly after World War II. Aluminum foil supplanted it in everyday use. It was the government's doing because intelligence agencies were becoming more adept at mind control. They realized that tinfoil really would keep the energy waves out that the government was using, but aluminum foil wouldn't. So if you want to truly protect yourself, you need to not use aluminum, but actual tinfoil. Tinfoil hats. So our aluminum foil hats would be useless because the government would be able to, okay. For my pod pet tax, I give you Chloe. You saw her before and called her chunky. She resembles that remark. You are welcome to guess the breed. I know she's a cat. She only cuddles with my daughter and obviously my daughter's stuffed animal. Thanks for all you do in keeping us relatively sane. She's beautiful. She's a tabby calico or a tabby tortie. She's gorgeous is what she is. 100% gorgeous. So I'm getting all the breeds right today. 100% cute and 100% gorgeous. Next up from Steve P, pronouns he and him. Hi, AG and DG. Check out Foundry United Methodist Church in DC, a mere 6 blocks from the White House, where everyone is valued and loved. Thank you, Steve P, for sending that in. And thanks for the shout out to Foundry United Methodist Church in DC. Next up from Anonymous, I want to give a shout out to my husband who introduced me to your podcast. Hey, honestly, it's been a lifeline. Full disclosure, I've tried a lot of podcasts over the years, and I would genuinely rather sit in traffic in complete silence than listen to most people talk at me. But now I'm fully convinced that I can start the day. I can't start the day without your podcast. Apparently, you broke me so hard that I'm now writing to you, which is truly unprecedented behavior for someone whose default setting is Minnesota nice. Observe quietly. Don't make a fuss. Anyway, my husband immigrated to this country when he was 10 years old, and his family was supported by the government programs that eventually turned an immigrant kid into a guy with a doctorate. Plot twist, when you invest in people, they thrive. Wild concept. Who knew? Literally everyone except the current administration, apparently. He has dedicated his career as a federal employee at the VA. Okay, so we have a lot in common here, except for the immigrant part. He chooses to serve veterans and give back to the government since he saw government programs transform his own life. Oh, this is amazing. Outside of work, he's an attentive father to our 3 young children, which means he hasn't had an uninterrupted thought in years, and his idea of me time is now going to the grocery store alone. The good news is it's his birthday, and tonight we're flying out for our first kid-free trip in years, having uninterrupted adult conversations, and maybe sleeping past 6 a.m.? I don't know what we would do without your podcast. Thanks for being the soundtrack to our commute and reminding us to laugh when everything feels heavy. You've converted a podcast hater into a podcast person who apparently now writes fan mail. If that's not a miracle, I don't know what one is. We don't have pets, but I snapped this photo while on the road and it makes me smile every time. Okay, yes, that's hilarious. It's a woman with a dog and in doggles on the back of a scooter, a big beefy scooter, like if Harley's made scooters. Oh my God, that's amazing. That's so fantastic. First of all, thanks to your husband for his service. Thanks for enjoying this podcast. I was not a podcast person either. And now I'm a podcast person. Well, I'm a non-podcast person making a podcast. So maybe that's why not usually podcast people like this podcast so much. I have no idea. But we appreciate you listening. And thanks so much for this photo. It did give me a smile. Anybody and everybody, please send us your good news, whatever it is. We would love to hear from you. Dana will be back in your ears tomorrow with me. I'm about to wrap this show up so that I can go over and record the video, the new video podcast. And it's just me today, no Dana. And for that video podcast, which goes out to our patrons right now, but will be going out to the public starting on December 1st. But we're right now releasing it to patrons with a link to give feedback because we want you to help us build this show. And we're taking all of your comments into consideration, including the tinfoil hat. But I'll be over there. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a reading of what happened in court with Sandwich Guy today because it's pretty amazing. As you're listening to this on Wednesday morning, the jury is deliberating. They may have come back already with a verdict. We'll see what happens. But I'm about to go record that video podcast for patrons. If you want to become a patron, help us build this new video podcast that we're making, you can do that by going to patreon.com/thedailybeans and signing up. I think it's $5 a month. Plus you get tons of other things. You get the audio Daily Beans ad-free and early. You get the new video podcast. You get to give your input on the video podcast. When the video podcast goes public, you'll get the video podcast ad-free and early. You also get the Unjustified podcast ad-free and early. There's so much stuff. Plus, you get to come to our monthly happy hour Zoom calls where you can ask us questions and we all talk and hang out and have cocktails and mocktails. This past Friday, Andrew McCabe and Harry Dunn and I were there. And then you'll also get tickets to live events on pre-sale and our VIP galas and stuff like that. Gala is a strong word. It's a party where I have an open bar and feed everybody. And thank you for being patrons. But you can sign up again, patreon.com/thedailybeans or patreon.com/Mueller, She Wrote. Either one will work. But thank you so much, everybody. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, and take care of your family. And vote blue over Q. We could say that now because it's an election week. And we'll look forward to those results. See you tomorrow. I've been AG, and them's the beans.
The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane, with art and web design by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com.
MSW Media.